excited. I think a lot of times, especially when you're new to the sport, you're not sure what to expect. You're not sure what's going on. And, a lot of us love running these distances and going a little bit further. I remember the very first time it ever happened to me. I was doing a marathon, and I think it was actually maybe the Disney marathon. And I just remember my stomach, it just absolutely revolted against everything it was doing. In fact, there for a long time, I would take, the candy ginger chews with me because everything was messing with my stomach. So Jenny, really excited to be able to talk to you about an issue that I know a lot of runners face and having to deal with. Hey, how do I fuel my body, and how do I get this thing going without having to, without having the problems with the stomach going south. So give us a little background, if you will, Jenny, about Tailwind Nutrition and kind of how this all came about.
Sure. So the background is, they say that necessity is the mother of invention, and that is absolutely true with Tailwind. So my husband, Jeff, was competing in the Leadville 100 mountain bike race every single year. And he was always running into GI problems and cramping issues and keeping himself fueled during the duration of the race. And it just gets really frustrating because you train and so hard, and you invest a lot of time and money and effort into this big race, right? And so it was really frustrating for him to end the race and finish it, but he felt horribly, and his legs felt great, so he felt like he could go out and ride another 100 miles, but his stomach had just turned south. So he literally tried everything out there on the marketplace, and he's just one of those guys who sits down and figures things out. He's a problem solver, and he came up with Tailwind Nutrition. So it was originally just for his own personal use. I'd walk into the kitchen and he'd be making it on our KitchenAid. I'd be walking to this, all this powder in the kitchen.
Right.
And then he bikes with this Bike and Brew group every Thursday night, and folks started asking about it, and he started sharing it. And we were at the point where, like, well, maybe we should make this available to other folks. So we threw it up on the Leadville 100 forum and had some folks who said, yeah, I'll try it out, because they too were really frustrated with not being able to address the issues that they had. And so they experimented with it. And I think for us, there was one email in particular that pushed us over the threshold. And it was a woman who had tried to finish a 100-miler, and she had never been able to do it because her stomach would just shut down at the 60 to 70-mile mark. And she was so frustrated. And so she emailed us, and she said, I was able to finish my 100-miler. And she literally crossed the finish line and cried because she was just so overcome with happiness that she had finished this race. And that was really what pushed us over the threshold. We said, wow, this can really help a lot of people in helping them achieve their personal goals. So that's why we started Tailwind. And that's always been our mantra is, when you come back to the why, it's because we really want to help people achieve their personal goals and feel great at the end of a race. So, or at an event or a run or what have you. So
I think what's really fascinating for me is that, and in so many of these, I absolutely believe it, but I've run with others, like, hey, this is really in my head at that point down. This is a head race, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, but if you're not fueling it's more than a head thing, because it is amazing what begins to happen to the human body, what begins to happen to you mentally when you're not putting things in there, you're not able to function. And I think that gets lost a lot of times for people who haven't done the distances, is what it takes nutritionally to get you through some of these events.
I absolutely agree. And, I do believe that in endurance events, that 80% of it is mental. You can really push your body to do incredible things. But at the end of the day, it's just physiological that if you aren't giving yourself calories and hydration and electrolytes, your body's just going to shut down. And you might be able to crawl across the finish line, but it's going to be a very painful experience. And the reality is that there are options out there that can help you finish a race feeling great.
Wow. Now, when he was developing this, was it a lot of trial and error, a lot of testing, a lot of figuring out? What exactly was this process when he was trying to find something that would work for him?
So Jeff sat down and decided to approach it from a fairly different perspective, in the sense that, one, he was an endurance athlete, so he knew exactly what he wanted to overcome, and that is the GI issues, making it really simple so that he wouldn't have to think about, oh, is it time to take a salt pill? Is it time to take more calories? Do I need to drink more? He just really wanted to simplify the process. He also wanted to make it a really mild taste, because the longer you go, what tastes really great at the very beginning can start turning south the longer that you go. Like the overly sweet flavor can just get to you, and you're like, no more. And we call it the gag reflex, where you just can't take another sip. And that certainly has happened to me a number of times. So he was really approaching it from an endurance athlete perspective. And then more importantly, how does your body process fuel? He was really trying to dig down to the basics of what happens when you eat or drink something. How does your body take those calories and make them available for energy? And so that's what he ended up focusing on for Tailwind. It's what led him to use simple carbohydrates, mimic what you sweat out, not include protein. And then it was a function of also recognizing that in looking at the research, you want to take multiple sources of carbohydrates rather than a single source of carbohydrate. So really figuring out what is that ratio between glucose and fructose so that you can take advantage of the multiple transport mechanisms, so you can get a higher absorption of calories without upsetting the stomach. And I think that's what Tailwind has hit upon, is that ratio. It just seems to work for a lot of people, even those who historically have suffered from fructose malabsorption issues. They can use Tailwind and knowing that they're getting a maximum absorption of calories without upsetting their stomach, even though they're taking both glucose and fructose.
So essentially, it's just kind of the right combination to really kind of take it easy on you, but to fuel you at the same time.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
Our goal with Tailwind, and really with any fueling strategy, your whole goal is to stave off the depletion of your glycogen stores. When you're doing your activity, your glycogen stores are like your quick energy. So your body's always using a combination of your glycogen stores, your fat stores, and whatever you're eating and drinking. So Tailwind's goal, any other goal, is to stay. You just don't want to run out of those glycogen stores, because then you bonk. So what Tailwind was looking at was, well, what's the way that we can give you those calories so that your body can absorb them really quickly? And that ended up being those simple carbohydrates.
Jenny, I think what's fascinating about this, which I'm excited what Jeff has developed, is the fact that I'll stand, whether it's in a running store, or whether it's in the local grocery store, and I'm trying to pick out fuel. I'm trying to do something. And reality is, you're like, well, I hope I know the thought process that went into this, but in reality, you're like, is this just sugar? Am I literally just dumping sugar in my gut? But to be able to hear the thought process and the time and effort and energy that went into developing something for endurance athletes, that's one of the things I would imagine that really sets you guys apart from a ton of other people who are trying to do something similar.
Well, we're definitely our own guinea pigs for sure. So Jeff tested it quite a bit. And then because we live in Durango, Colorado, we're very fortunate to have a lot of athletes who live in this area, runners, bikers, kayakers, what have you, just a lot of very active folks. And so they were great testers for us as well. And then reaching out to different folks to test it. So it really was a long, involved process. Jeff dialed it in for himself, but then bringing it to a larger market, we were like, well, does it work for other folks? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can create something for yourself and you think, oh, this is great. But then, does it work for other people? And it turns out that it did. So that was great.
Now, I assume it comes in the powdered form is how it comes, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And how do people usually carry it for a race? Well, how do people usually do this during a competition?
So there are a couple different ways, and it really depends upon personal preference. Some folks run with the powder. They'll take our single serving sizes, which are actually 2 servings, so 200 calorie stick packs, and they'll carry those with themselves. Another way is to create a concentrated form of Tailwind, and we see a lot of folks using this, particularly for road marathons, where the aid stations are fairly spaced apart. So typically on like the Marine Corps Marathon, New York Marathon, or what have you, you'll have aid stations every mile. So they know that they're going to have water. So they'll take Tailwind and they'll run about 800 calories in a 4-ounce flask. So that's 200 calories per ounce. And they'll mark it with a black magic marker. So they know, okay, every hour I'm going to take in 200 calories and I'm going to sip it. And then whenever I get to an aid station, I'm going to down some water. And we always tell them what most runners end up at is about 20 ounces of about 200 calories of Tailwind per 20 ounces of water. So they just need to make sure that they're keeping up on that water intake when they hit those aid stations. And then they're also keeping track of their calories and electrolytes by that 200 calories.
That makes sense. What are some of the, as you, I know, have seen a lot of runners, and from supporting to kind of performing yourself, what are some of the most common misconceptions you think people have about nutrition when they go out there? Are there some common mistakes or common misconceptions a lot of us endurance athletes have?
I think there are a couple things. One is the number of calories that you take in per hour. So when I was doing ultra cycling, I was always told, well, you're expending 500 plus calories an hour, so you need to take in 500 calories an hour. Mm-hmm. And that's simply not true. Your system cannot handle that. Most people can physiologically process between 200 and 300 calories per hour. And it really does depend upon person to person. So it's kind of individual, and you figure that out during your training. Most runners end up at about 200 calories. Cyclists can go up to like 250, and then kayakers a little bit more. But yeah, you really want to stay within that 200 to 300 calorie range, because if you take in too many calories, you end up overloading the gut, and that in and of itself can cause a traffic jam. And it just, I mean, you can imagine it in your head that it's just staying there in your stomach, waiting to be processed. And if you think about Thanksgiving dinner that we all had, like I love pecan pie. And so I can eat a lot of calories over Thanksgiving dinner, right? Yeah. But more than at 200 to 300 calories. But then afterwards, I'm so full and I'm not eating anything. And it's just taking a while to process those calories over those number of hours. But I'm not running, right? I'm not sloshing it up and down and what have you. So that's one misconception. Another misconception is people talk a lot about exactly what you said. Sugar is bad. Sugar is horrible. But the reality is that is what our body runs on. Our body runs on glucose. Our body uses glucose to have our major organs work, just to function as a human being. We need to have glucose, and that is sugar. So there's this misconception that sugar is bad. And certainly if I am not out there running or biking or what have you, and just sitting on a couch, I'm not going to want to take Tailwind. I'm not going to want to take I'm not going to want to take a sports drink. You definitely want to be active to take a product like Tailwind. But the notion that you shouldn't take any sugar while you're running your marathon or your half marathon is kind of crazy, because then you're forcing your body to go through all of its glycogen stores, and you're going to end up bonking.
In your mind, from different athletes that you've seen use it and kind of for what the product is designed for, is there a time that you're out on the road or a time you're doing an event that, hey, if you're not putting some nutrition in your body for an event that's this length or longer, do you have something in your mind? You say, hey, this is when you should start taking something?
That is a great question, because a lot of people think that they need to take something if they're going out for an hour. And the reality is you can go with water for an hour. You have enough in your glycogen stores. There's enough sodium in the typical American diet that you don't need to take any electrolytes. Just run with water and you're going to be fine. Between 1 hour and 2 hours, you might want to take in 100 calories per hour just as a preventative measure for your glycogen stores, so that you aren't completely depleted at the end, and maybe some electrolytes depending upon the heat. And then for 2+ hours, that's when you want to hit the 200 calories an hour. That's when you really want to maximize your absorption of calories to prevent the depletion of those glycogen stores.
That makes sense. I had a chance, and I feel so bad because I look, I'm like, oh man, I think I look like that too. I was watching Jeff's video after he got done with the 100-mile Leadville, and I just, oh my God, I would imagine after desperation, yeah, you'll say, hey, I've got to solve this. So what does Jeff do? Is he big cyclist, big anything? What in particular are some of the events that he really loves to do?
So the Leadville 100 is his primo event every year, and he just got his 10-year belt buckle last year because he's completed it 10 times. So that's really his primo event, what he trains for every year. This past December, he had a cervical spine fusion, so that kind of went off the table. Yeah. But he's in recovery mode, and he's looking at what his next event might be. But that's really the event that he targets every year. And then just participating in like local races. So we had the Iron Horse Bicycle Challenge, which is what both Jeff and I do. And yeah, so we look for different events, but really the Leadville 100 is his marquee event. Gotcha. My marquee event this past summer was supposed to be Paris, but then I ended up lacerating my elbow and got 20 stitches, so that got taken off the table. So, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now tell us, now you guys are in Durango, Colorado, correct? So
Yeah.
what is it like to train there? Tell us about Durango for those of us not familiar with Durango. First of all, Durango sounds like the most incredible name for a town in the first place. So I love the name of it. I can only imagine what it's like.
It's great. Every day we wake up and we say, oh, it's another beautiful day in Durango. And I'm not sure if you saw when I left, but it was snowing outside. So so we're entering ski season. We went out for a snowshoe yesterday. The trails are readily accessible. It's just a great community for athletes. If you know the Hard Rock 100 is up in Silverton, so that's only about a 40 to 50 minute drive. Literally, we're at the base of the mountains, of the San Juan Mountains. There's the Animas River that flows through our town. Just tons and tons of trails. And fortunately for us, everybody gets along. So so the runners and the cyclists and the backpackers and the bike packers and the equestrian riders, we all share the trails. There's a wonderful organization here called Trails 2000, and they do a lot of trail maintenance work to keep those trails suitable for all of us to use. They're just a fantastic organization. So yeah, we're very, very blessed and fortunate to live in this community. And I can also say that we would not be here without our community. Tailwind would not be what it is today without the support of this community. It's just been phenomenal from day one, from the knowledge that people have shared, from being testers of our product. It's just been phenomenal.
How have you seen a lot of the growth of Tailwind? Has it been through a lot of just word of mouth and people using it? Has it been through a lot of race directors, combination of both? Or how have you kind of seen the growth of Tailwind?
So it's primarily through word of mouth, and certainly the events help because people will say, hey, have you tried this product? It's Tailwind. And then they'll go to an event and they'll have an opportunity to sample Tailwind because it's on the course. So it's incredible when we look at the orders coming in online to us. It's just, where do you hear about us? From a friend, from another runner, from a friend, referral. It's just, I would say that, 95% of our business is based upon customer recommendation. So it's been phenomenal. It's, I love our customers. And I tell folks like Sunday and Monday are my favorite days because then I hear back from our customers after they've taken out for the weekend. And it's just awesome. It's the greatest feeling in the world to know that you've helped someone cross the finish line or achieve some type of personal goal, a PR, or what have you. It's the greatest feeling in the world and gives you an instant high. It's just awesome.
Well,
that's why we do
it. And what I love about what you do is, we put so many miles in, so much time, so much effort for the training that, it's amazing what can happen. You put all that time and effort and energy into it, but yet one thing like nutrition, if you're not putting time and effort and energy into that and understanding how your body works, it's the one thing that will slam you on brakes on race day if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, it definitely will.
So for people who want to learn more about Tailwind, what's a couple of questions. Number one, we'll certainly point them towards your website and put all those in the show notes as well. And I want to make sure Brandon, he has some time to answer questions as well. But for people who get Tailwind and are like, hey, I've never really used anything quite like this, I would assume a lot of the instructions for how to use it, how to test it are probably listed on your website as well. Is that right?
Yeah, we have a facts section on our website. And the other thing is that we encourage anyone to email us or contact us if they have additional questions, because that's what we're here for. In fact, our email address to contact us is supportcrew@tailwindnutrition.com because we really view ourselves as your support crew.
That's great. Great. Okay. Well, hey, we'll go ahead and end the podcast here. And I just wanted to Jenny, just wanted to thank you again for spending some time with us and answering questions we have, and appreciate your work on this. And hey, know it's going to serve a ton of runners and a ton of athletes who are looking for trying to complete these races and the energy to do it without hurting their stomach. So, hey, thanks again for all you do.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having us, and just really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about Tailwind and hopefully answer any questions that somebody may have had about our product or nutrition problems that they're having during their run.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Jenny.
Okay, thanks.